Oh, that'd be okay.
So we're live?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Well, thanks, all. We'll call the meeting to order at this time. First off, is there any I guess we have a forum. Everybody's here. We have Brad and Bonnie via live stream on Zoom. And I guess conflict of interest declarations. You've all had a chance to review the budget, the agenda. If anyone has a conflict of interest they wish to declare at this time? No? Okay. Adoption of the agenda. You've all had a chance to view the agenda. I have someone move if there are no questions or comments on the agenda, could I have someone move that the agenda be accepted as presented? Danny, thank you. A second. Thank you, Jim. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Adoption of minutes of the board meeting September 28, 2023. You've all had a chance to review those minutes. If there are no questions or comments, if I could have someone move that those minutes be adopted as presented. Harvey, thank you. A seconder. Okay, Denny, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, thank you. Business arising from the previous minutes. The first one is the budget. I know we've had several discussions on the budget. Hollis has been out to several of the councils discussing the budget, explaining how it all works. Is there anybody that would like to have any discussion before we move or take the motion to adopt the budget?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that I sent out the version this week, which is revised, and is revised because I received more funding from the Regional Services Support Fund, and that was applied to the various lines of business where we could, which is in turn going to reduce the bills that we send to municipalities. There are no new expenses added. The only thing was that I had this other input that I could reduce your bills with.
And I believe you've all had a chance to look at those numbers.
That was my
Of the
question.
reduction.
I was gonna ask that.
Hollis was going to bring that up. I was supposed to.
Well, I thought we might miss it there. We were going.
No. So there is a reduction for everybody, and it's all in your paperwork that you've had a chance to look at.
Can you like a percentage on the reduction or?
Well, the original input from the Regional Services Support Fund was $311,000. That's what the figure I've been working with for months. That's the figure that Mark's worked with for creating the budget. But then Monday afternoon, they said that because there was such an increase in property assessments around the province, that they've increased the fund from the total fund for the province was 9.6 million. They increased it to 13.1 million. So because of that, ours increased from 311,000 to 440,000 and change. So it's an extra 130,000 ish dollars that I was able to spruce up, and we were able to add it into without having to increase inputs from members. Like that's why we have to spread that around.
And the reason they did that was that funding that comes in has to be matched
Right.
by us. So we had room in our matching capability to absorb that 130 without having to spend any more from the municipality.
Exactly.
So when you lower the municipality's cost, did you do it through tipping fees or no? That's too.
No, it's the quarterly billing that
Okay.
we send out for each line of service.
Yeah, gotcha.
For each line of business, I mean, that's what got both. Economic development, tourism promotion.
Community
Community
development,
development.
public safety committee, regional transportation, and it could go against recreation.
Thanks, Steve. So for example, under tourism promotion was 33,000 before, now it's 28. That was for economic development, it was 35 before, now it's 22. Community development was 15, it's now 7, rough numbers. Regional transportation was 2, now 700. And so minor changes all the way across.
I apologize, I didn't get time to see it because I
No,
played all
no
week.
problem.
It was suppressed there.
Well, I didn't think anybody was gonna argue against,
Lowering, no,
No.
just gonna know, get some asked.
Yeah,
The bills that we're gonna be sending out next year for these services are gonna be significantly lower than what we are sending out currently for this year. For 2023. It's.
okay. Any other comments, questions?
I'll make a motion that we accept the budget for 2024.
Okay, the motion in your agenda that John is putting forth. The Board of the Regional Service Commission of Southwest New Brunswick resolves that the total operating budget for the Regional Service Commission for the 2024 calendar year would consist of total revenue $7,859,738 and total expenditures of $7,859,738, and that the capital budget would consist of total expenditures of $830,000. And John has made the motion. A seconder.
I will second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
I think we got,
Sorry.
we got it.
Yeah, Bonnie,
Yeah, okay.
Bonnie was a yay. I didn't hear Brad though. I didn't see Brad.
I think he's.
And is that your hand up?
No,
No,
that's just.
He's doing a saw turning for.
You do.
Oh, okay. So motion is passed. Under anything else under business arising from the previous meeting? Okay. New business. Paulus is going to talk to us a little bit about a new tipping fee on recycling. Not for you guys. That's something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This literally came up in the last 2 days, which is why I added it to the agenda late. But I have a situation that's going to require a tipping fee that we don't have, and any new fees have to be by motion of the board. So what this tipping fee is for recycled materials from people that aren't members of the Regional Service Commission. The reason I need this is really just for the first 4 months of 2024, probably. The new Harvey, or whatever it's called now, I can't remember the full name of whatever Harvey is now, Harvey, Manor Sutton, Old Village, and Manor Sutton, are going to be bringing their recycling for the first 4 months of 2024, but their garbage is going to go to Fredericton. So because their garbage is going to Fredericton, their tipping fee for garbage they would normally be paying us, which includes that recycling charge, we're not going to collect. So I spoke with the CAO of Harvey. They don't have a problem with having a tipping fee for recycling materials only. Normal municipalities don't pay this because it's included in your regular garbage tipping fees. So that's why I have to charge it. The tipping fee that I've come up with is it costs us $130 a ton to ship the materials that we receive to get sorted. And I'm working with a figure of $70 a ton to handle it at our end as a transfer station. So the tipping fee I proposed was $200 a ton for recycling materials. And so that's what I'm looking for. It's a new fee that we don't have at all, because we've never charged for recycling materials.
What time did you say it was?
Harvey,
Harvey?
Is it just for Harvey or is there other ways to?
it's for anybody that would need it, but I can't imagine anybody would normally. And after May 1st, after then Circular Materials takes over, and then it's up to them, whatever they want to do with that. But really, this is for the first 4 months, and Harvey is the only one that would have this kind of a situation. We talked a little bit about Fundy Shores, and there's a further conversation coming between Fundy Shores and Harvey about the recycling carts and how we're going to handle this and changes upcoming, but that's not been resolved yet. But for right now, I do need a new fee, and that has to be by motion of the board.
Is there a fee structure that's similar to this, like in other regions or other places? that
Yeah,
do it? Is
yeah.
this similar, what you're proposing to what they already charge?
Everybody's a little bit different. And some people do have a tipping fee for recycled materials. And they don't include it in the tipping fees of garbage they normally charge. But we've always done it with, it's included in the tipping fee of garbage, so. It would be nice to be able to take the recycling for free, but it costs us, at least 130 a ton to ship it out, plus we have to handle it and sort of handle it and put it on trucks and stuff, so.
How many tons does Harvey produce? In, let's say a month? Any idea?
No. The village of Harvey, we were only talking about 4 or 5 tons
Okay,
for the first 4 months, like it was like 18 tons a year or something like that. Now Manor Sutton is a little different,
okay.
so.
So. Tipping fees, normally tipping fees would go to the haulers.
No, we collect tipping fees.
In the past before to us too,
You
for
get-
recycling.
No, for garbage.
Yeah, that's what I mean, but for recycling, we didn't. We had to pay the tipping fees to the haulers though, or. Whatever.
The service commission pays a fee to, we have JS Bellis and they haul garbage from Western Valley and then they go back with our recycling and we worked out a deal at 130 a ton to do so.
Left something at the door.
All right. Just distracted there for a second, but yeah, but no, we've never charged anybody that brings us recycling from the region, we don't charge different people.
I'll make a motion to we adopt the new policy for non-members for the recycling. Sound correct?
Yeah, do you want to put a dollar?
$200 at that time. $200 then. You bet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Harvey, thank
As
you.
long as that's enough money.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Brad's back.
Now,
Brad's got metal around his chest.
do you want to get Brad's vote on the budget so to make it unanimous?
I don't know if you can do that.
Well, we gotta get a quorum and it's already.
Yeah, okay.
Point of order.
So the recycling is looked after. Anything else under new business? Anybody want to bring up? Okay, committee and staff reports, community development presentation. Raymond?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just an opportunity to give the board an update on.
Can you sit so your microphone can pick you up?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right in front of the. So this should just be a brief update on community development work to date. Be high level, but if you have questions, feel free to ask. So I'll just wait for Paul to bring up the slides. Yeah, give you the wrong one. Well, we'll see. We'll go to the next slide. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. I'll do we want to move on to the public safety committee report and then I come on right after? I'll go get the right file.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
All right,
Sorry,
so
Mr. Chair.
No worries. No. Happens to us all the time. Okay, public safety committee report. Do we have someone providing that?
I can do that, Mr. Chair. Okay. So Public Safety Committee met on October 18th. They met here. We had good attendance. We had as committee members as well as municipal staff and RC staff. David Hatt was nominated as the chairperson of the committee. We didn't have one previously at our first committee meeting, so David Hatt is our new chair of the Public Safety Committee. We discussed several things. a lot of it was around communication. And potential mutual aid channel. I mean, we've got cases where people are carrying 4 different radios. For, VHF, UHF, TMR, it's, and the situation, I guess, became evident during the Boca fire. That, the communication between the various departments wasn't, everybody's using different channels or different forms of communication, so we talked about ways of possibly enhancing that or doing something better or somehow combining the service. Nothing got resolved there, but the other things that we discussed were cell service. So the point of cell service coming from the Public Safety Committee, the Public Safety Committee would like a recommendation from this board for me to take this forward to the province to start addressing some of the serious holes that we have in cell service around the region. We previously offered some land at the landfill site to put up a tower if they want at no charge. But I've been working with our NLA on that, but it's gone where it's kind of dead in the water. So I think if we had a new kind of push from the board, it might help.
You need a motion for that?
Since I'll make the motion after you're done.
Yeah. Yep, after I give my report, if you, I would appreciate a motion to that, and I will go forward with that. One of the other pieces of information we discussed was having a central place where residents in the region can find all of the various emergency information and different information and news and updates that are happening. So updates from Indian Power Act. And one of the thoughts that I had was we could take the Service Commission website. We could make a new page within that website, and it would be an aggregate of various news sources from around the region, and it would be automated. So that is nobody has to actually sit and update it, because then, they'll go stagnant. But it is possible most of these feeds they have from, if it's Twitter or if it's whatever feeds they've got, can be aggregated onto a single web page automatically, and so it automatically updates itself. So that would be the other motion, I guess, from the board to direct me to, if you want me to do that, or at least investigate what it's going to take to do that. I don't think it's overly complicated, but I'd have to dedicate a little time just to do the research to figure out how much it's going to take to do that. It might be no money at all. It might just be a matter of creating the new page and putting in the conduits. So I can do that. Yeah, so outcomes were David Att recommend the committee allow H. Bartlett take the topic of inconsistent mobile device service to the board directors, which we've done. I asked the members there to ask their municipalities what they would like to see happen regionally for protective services, and they're going to bring that forward to the next meeting. We have been talking about a potential volunteer appreciation dinner sometime in the new year. That'd be for emergency services volunteers. It would be spouses and partners included, like it's just a nice appreciation dinner, possibly some awards. And our next meeting is going to be held in February.
Is that in a report somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my report, Mr. Chair. You looking for a motion on cell service?
So,
And what?
yeah, the cell service one is pretty self-evident. I think we can go with that. The other one, I think the concern is cost. I think we want to do some investigating into that to determine what kind of a software package, if required, what that would cost to maintain, and other aspects of that investigation that you would be doing.
Yeah,
I think that would be wise to do that first. We can make the motion that we allow you to do that.
right.
So, yeah,
Mr. Chair, just an addendum, perhaps you can also look at the idea of making it into an app for cell phones,
Oh, yeah.
right? Just so rather than, if it was an app, I know that a lot of people use our recycling app and the landfill app. So it's a lot easier to have an app on your phone, powers out. You can get if you can get a cell phone coverage, then you hit the button, you're on the app, at least you get your news right away.
Danny?
Would it be just for cell service or like the tower could be multi-use for internet, like for laptops and. So I'm just wondering, because I know like ground search and rescue would be one that uses their laptops and things and has pretty sketchy service in most areas. So would it just be cell service or
Well, the
Be
cell
combined.
tower, I guess that would be up to
whoever?
Yeah.
links it?
Bell or Rogers, whoever puts it up,
Yeah,
what they would allow or what they can put on there. Usually there's data included on.
that's what I thought, but I just didn't know. No, I definitely would make the motion though for you to pursue. Further on cell towers somewhere, so you said you got land already that we discussed, so yeah.
So is that the only hole we're talking about, or for
Well-
the RSC?
The push could be for enhanced cell service in general,
Right.
but along with the offer of. I think we've already made this offer in the past, right? Because where the landfill is situated is the center of that big hole of no service, and it's a high point as well.
Yeah.
Geographically, and it's right on that number 3 highway, which is the problem.
They keep turning the signal down everywhere, like you notice, like Brad was saying about St. Andrews, not as good as it used to be, we're not as good because the Americans are complaining about. Ours is overriding them, but when it's the other way around, they just tell you to put it on home only, so it's time Bell turn it back up. Tell them to put it on home only, because it's a safety reason, our TMRs go through,
Yeah.
you know what I mean,
That's
so
what I was
they're only
wondering.
gonna work half as good if you don't have a cell phone signal, right?
Yeah.
We're relying on it so much now for all your tools,
There are
not just talking.
there are a few areas in Region 10 that have poor TMR coverage. There's a handful of one end of Grand Anne's, and I think part of Campobello, maybe. I'm not sure about that.
So far, we haven't run
Yeah.
into any problems with our
Yeah.
TMRs.
But there are some places where they're sketchy, a few spots, but most of the region is covered well by TMR towers.
So what are the bad areas for TMR?
Grand Anne, and I think there might be a section between Harvey and Macadam in there. That's kind of a dead zone too. I'm not sure about that one.
I know we just had a new tower put up in Cadam.
That might be covering that area then.
That was about, I would say 2 years, maybe 3 years ago, that one in. Okay, all right, Bonnie?
Yeah, just on the TMR coverage, we had a meeting with Rhonda earlier this week, and I think we're going to do an assessment of the TMR coverage just to make sure that the map is accurate. And that dead section on the southern part of Grand Anne, there's actually a cell phone tower repeater that Bell has on the village's property. So if there was a way to hook that into the TMR system, it would certainly help with that significantly if that's the area that still has the bad coverage. But I know certainly cell coverage on Grand Anne, we have a lot of other spots that have pockets of non-coverage. The northern end of the island too, Harvey, like up by the Whistle, like over there looking towards Campobello, like something between those two sections would really help, I think, both ends of that end of my island and the other end of yours. So anyway.
So do we change that? First off, maybe I should ask, is there any other comments to be made?
Just, we probably should map it first before we go after it.
Well, I think,
Know what we're asking for? Or is that part of your work?
no, but I would think that. Bell should be the ones doing the mapping.
Well, yeah, I just guess we should have an idea of what we're asking for. Make sure we ask for all the bad areas.
Well, we'd like to have coverage in the areas we don't have coverage, and we'd
Yeah,
like to
yeah.
have better coverage in the areas that we do have coverage, because. Like I said, I mean, we got tower, at my house is great, because I live right below it, but there's places you don't have to be very far away from it, and I don't understand it, because it's right on a hill too, but. It's the way it's all works.
So I think Harvey hit on some of the points there. I'm not gonna try and regurgitate that, but And Denny's right too. So the two of them, if we could combine the two of those. So that we want to go and we want to have a look at the current coverage. We want to improve coverage in the areas that are not receiving coverage right now. First thing I'd ever heard about this powering down the antennas, maybe we need to get on the bell to power those back up as well. And then in with that, we are offering to provide land through RSC 10 for the installation of a tower in one of the dead zones that has been clearly defined. Does that capture everything we're trying to state? Okay.
And I'll second that if you second.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
believe, Mr. Chair, that Denny had the first motion.
Yeah.
And then that, well, if that's, I can
With all
revise
that,
the motion to
yeah.
follow that to include everything, if that's what you were. If that's what we're all looking for to go in that direction, I'd be okay with that.
Maybe we can send it right to Chris Austin, because it is a public, it is a safety thing now, I mean, used to be, if you didn't have a cell phone, well, it is what it is, but now it's a safety aspect if you don't have one.
But I think we include all that in the motion, that's would be Hollis's, up to Hollis to do. And then just come back to the board with whatever he gets.
And so we have a motion, we have a second. Now I'm gonna ask another question. I just want to make sure this is going to the collective of the RSCs in one of their meetings, and then is that going from there to Chris Austin, Public Safety Minister,
Straight from us to, I was just thinking,
or just from RSC 10 right to Chris Austin? Yeah, that's.
I know that it's been an issue in other regions of the province, and I know it's been a complaint, especially in Kent region, for instance, they have huge areas of no service. I don't know if, I know they have a lot of problems with it there, but
Is there another minister we should be sending to? Not just go public safety and use whatever other one that would fall under, or would it fall in?
well, I'll follow up with our MLA as well.
Yeah.
Apparently, what I've been told is that if there's a place with no cell service and there's no business case for the cell service, the province will fund the capital cost of setting up the tower. So if we go in as a partner and say, here's the land, and the province comes back and says, we'll fund the capital cost. This is what I've been.
Yeah.
Told.
That should be no brainer for whoever picks it up.
Okay, so we have the motion, we have, it's been seconded. If there are no other comments, questions? I think some say we're ready for the vote or something, but anyway, all those in favor of the motion, we signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? They say nay. Okay, motion passed. Thank you very much, Hollis, for that one. Community development presentation, you're ready to go now?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
we were back, so we are definitely gonna just wait, he's gonna investigate first and then bring information to the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, we'll just call that an action point, not a
Okay.
motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thanks.
Might not even really need a motion for. Doesn't hurt.
All right,
It's already done anyway.
It's an
Now you gotta do it. Yeah.
Not putting any more work on it.
Okay, Ray, you ready to go?
Yep. I'm ready.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
So community development, just a very brief refresher. Again, our goal with the community development mandate to build collaboration, coordination, increase our cooperative approach. And the idea is that investments in infrastructure and programs around community development services are effectively delivered and have a better overall impact because of that collaboration. Let's go next slide. So it's intended, the mandate is intended to solidify the various levels of support to communities that already exist, provide structures that help align provincial and regional efforts. I'll go next slide. So just want to give you a highlight on some of the progress on developing or creating that collaboration. One of the first things that we've worked at from the get-go, even from building our strategic plan, was working closely with our friends at Horizon Health Community Development, as well as Regional Resilience Committee. And so I'm pretty pleased to be able to say that we've got a pretty functional, what I'm calling a regional team for community development. Each one of us works on a regional scope, and so that allows us to really work closely together. So that collaborative work, what we've been doing, we've been coordinating visits with communities and community partners. So there's been a few of you that we've had a chance to meet with all together. Myself, Heather Chase, resident health community developer, along with Naomi Overs, she's a resident health community developer, and then Kim Reeder, she's a regional resiliency coordinator. And if we haven't seen you yet, you're on the list, or tap us on the shoulder to come visit you guys. We're doing the rounds, and what that looks like is meeting up with, if we can, mayor and council, but also community partners, community champions in the area. So just this 2 weeks ago, we were in McAdam with Kim and the council member, as well as the really amazing work that's happening there at it's escaped me. Lakeland Industries, and we think they're just, yeah, really amazing work. And we're also collaborating on specific pieces of work. So as you all know, Heather Chase and Horizon Health are in the midst of the community health needs assessments across the region. So I'm working closely with her, supporting where I can. I'll be helping facilitate some sessions in the coming weeks with their team. Same with Kim. And then the other interesting thing I just wanted to highlight, and it's kind of a pat on our back, a pat on your back, but the three of us working together has become a model for the province, I guess, in some ways, for collaboration, just because we're doing it so well. But I attributed that to a few things. One is we have very functional organizations that are already, working forward thinking. The RSC has been a very collaborative partner throughout all the transitions as Vibrant Communities was moving into the community development mandate, and we worked with Heather Chase and Kim already. So I think we had some really good aspects already on the go. But that's the chatter, is, people are impressed with how we're working together and doing things. So that's excellent. So we're going to keep that up, and keep building on that. We'll get to that. Just a little graphic there, a Venn diagram of the three circles of how, we each have our own areas that we're working on, but there's areas of overlap, and we try to coordinate and work together where we can. And it just makes sense for meeting up with community that we do it all together instead of meeting community 3 different times, that we all sit together at once and work together that way. Other little highlight that I've got there is our community development newsletter I've been sharing, developing that over the last few months and trying to make it better as I go. So this goes out once a month. It goes to a list of about 200 plus emails. Those would be community champions, residents, some counselors, some of you guys, different nonprofits across the region, and it highlights news, resources, training, different successes that are happening in the region.
And if they're not on the list, how do they get on the list?
Well, this is it. Yeah, I've been working on the subscription. So one way is you can just email me or get in touch with me. But if you've received this email,
You're on the list.
You're on the list. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I'll have to send out a little message to all of you about, if you haven't subscribed yet, I'll try to get a little link embedded in the email to all of you. So you click the link and I'll take you through signing up. And if you distribute that email, there'll be ways that people can sign up and subscribe to that email as well. So if you share it around, so yeah, it goes up to 200 people, but I think after it gets shared around, it goes to quite a few more than that. So, and I'll keep working on the subscription, making it easier and easier. It's a little bit of work. So next slide, please. Another large piece of work that I do in the role is I support the ESIC Community Action and Transportation funding that comes through the Service Commission. So ESIC is the Economic Social Inclusion Corporation. The funding that flows through us from them, it supports community projects. And the whole scope is making sure that this funding has a measurable impact on folks who are living with poverty, living in poverty. Priority areas right now for the funding is around community projects that are related to mental health addiction, school food programs, accessing sport, rec, and leisure. Not everybody has the same level of access, so trying to increase that, as well as community transportation. My role, just to be clear in that, is I promote the funding across the region. I work with applicants to make sure that their projects align with the priorities. And then I support them through the application process and the reporting process, and then I support the RSC in the whole funding back and forth and being that flow through. So, and I want to give you a good picture of what that impact looks like. It's not a lot of money. It's $50,000 a year that kind of flows through the community action grant, and then $50,000 that goes through the transportation funding. But the impact of that is not insignificant. So for 2022 and 2023, we were able to get out just over 30,000, supporting 6 projects across the region. And we track how many people participate, how many volunteers are involved, as well as what's the overall cost of those projects that are being supported. And so for last year, we had over 462 unique participants across demographics. That's, kids to seniors. There are over 70 volunteers that were involved with those projects that totaled over 1,500 hours involved in our community. And I'll share a highlight. One of the projects that we funded was just a pocket of money that helped increase inclusion. So it provided childcare and gas subsidies for the Amazing Place race that just happened last month. And there's some stories from that I'll share. But community transportation, I always like to highlight this one. Charlotte Dalloride is our primary community transportation provider in the region. And that year they have provided over 8,500 rides just in 1 year. That supports close to 200 members who otherwise wouldn't have access to transportation. 26 volunteers with over 6,400 hours for that year driving people. And those rides, they support medical, like local medical trips, but also to St. John, getting people to government services, accessing basic needs like groceries or bill payments, things, those kinds of things. And then a significant amount actually is they support people who are going to work or going to school, getting training, whether that's upgrading their GED or going to college. So that's a lot of rides. So over 5,000 rides they provided that year for work and training alone. So that adds up pretty fast. And then over 2,000 for medical appointments. Next slide. So it's just good to make this a little bit personal. The numbers are one thing, but it's good to see how people's lives are being impacted. And so for Harvey, you were involved in the Amazing Place race, and so it's a fun activity. It's meant to build resilience in the community and get community to get to know each other. But some folks weren't able to participate without some kind of childcare support or fuel support. So I like these. So for example, one senior who volunteered for planning and delivering the event. So this is a volunteer. They received the gas subsidy and noted that they had been ashamed lately as they felt they couldn't keep up with what was considered civic duty because of gas prices. But being able to participate allowed them to fulfill their role in the community. This third one here, there's a single father, sole custody of his children had been asked to participate in the event by his family. But that meant there was no free childcare. So he explained that the subsidy allowed him to have an amazing day with his family on an adult basis with his extended family. He hadn't had that type of interaction with his family or community in over 4 years. And so these are, these are people's lives, we're making a difference, and each project would have, some kind of story like that for individuals, so. So yeah, it's not insignificant, this is people's livelihoods, this is people, trying to participate in the community and give back, so.
Yeah, that's good.
Let me just comment, that's a very common theme about volunteers and fuel. We're seeing it in coaching and sports too,
As
like
well.
there's people just really can't afford to go to those trips like they did as coaches, and something they always did for. In their spare time for free, it's affecting them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that's coming here too.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that too, that's, I think it's overlooked.
Can I go just for a second on the dollar, right?
Mhm.
Just because I'm new to this and that whole, I never really understood it, I probably still don't.
Yeah.
But is dollar ride for all RSC 10, or is it just Charlotte County, or is it just St. Stephen, or like where does it?
Yeah, and the borders recently expanded, so they, the goal for them would be to include all of RSC 10. One of the challenges there, and we'll get to that at the end here, is they're very volunteer dependent, so they provide rides where volunteers are able to go or where volunteers are based. And so they always need support in drumming up volunteers, so if they have a volunteer in Campobello Island, they'll be able to do more rides in Campobello Island. If they have more volunteers and close to Fundy Shores, they will do more rides in Fundy Shores.
I guess that would be the other half, not just Fundy Shores, but Eastern Charlotte or up further.
Absolutely.
Of the promotional side of it, how do you get the name or that pushed up that way to, maybe there would be people that would be willing to volunteer or take it on, but. Again, I never really knew or understood it. I didn't even know until I came here that such a thing existed, so. So I guess maybe the majority of our communities up there don't even know, so.
And maybe, maybe when you come visit, we can chat a bit about.
No,
how
I'd
that
be
works.
interested, because it is good numbers, that whether it's local or whatever, it's a good system.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Next slide, please. So just an idea of what we've got on the go, or what I've got on the go. So this fall, I'm gonna keep focusing on foundation work for community development. To me, that's growing the network, improving communications, doing more planning. That includes like further developing what does this network structure look like? How can more people be connected and involved? But it also has other planning elements like we've got a school food coordination chat coming up of how do we improve, regionally, not just here, but also St. John, Sussex region. There's a bunch of us getting together to talk about that. Also this fall, looking at increasing some of the regional assets, the board was supportive of the collaborative grant writer, that we'll be looking to hire. We've got the job posted. We'll be going through applicants there and hiring this fall for that work. We're working on some rural access points. We've got the funding. Now we just have to kind of purchase the equipment, get it set up. So these are for areas that otherwise don't have any kind of computer system based in the library, like public access. So we're working with Fundy Shores and also with Black's Harbor to get a couple stations set up. We'll monitor that. Then increasing capacity. Kind of gone over the community action funding and how that work can support community capacity through other organizations that are doing good work, and sector development. So for example, we've got a nonprofit board governance workshop coming up in November. We'll work to do other types of workshops that will help nonprofits and community work. And then winter, regional input on poverty reduction. That's a whole other topic I could talk about. That's the province's process, 5-year process, and we're coming up for the next 5-year plans. So we need input on that. So I'll be working on that in the region, as well as reviewing the outcomes from the community health needs assessment and seeing how that integrates into our community development plan too.
Yeah, go ahead, Al.
Are you gonna be measuring the progress of that, what the province is gonna be doing, or you, so you can
So-
share that with us regularly?
Yeah, I'll share that. So what that is, overcoming poverty together for, that's the overarching plan. That's they do consultations across the province. Collect all that information, collate it, distill it into like, well, this is what people are saying are the top priorities that this funding and their advocacy should be working on in government and so where our current priorities are like school food programs, access to sport, rec and leisure. In 2025, that'll change. We'll have a new set of priorities, or maybe some of them will be the same, actually. So, but it's just trying to make sure that we're fresh and current with what communities are saying are the priorities to focus on with this type of work. So, so tracking it'll, I'll of course let you know what the new priorities are coming from the province that's been informed by community. And then from there too, I'll be tracking it as projects go through and the numbers and what kind of improvements are being made. So, yeah. And then I'm involved in a lot of other things. So yeah. And I just, those top three there, I want you to just know that I'm working with Charlene and workforce development strategy, working with Xander on housing files, where it relates to me and Sherry with recreation, making sure there's that inclusive component and then a number of other things there as well across the region. So pretty busy generally. Yeah.
So I will just comment, like I where I asked for progress reports, it would be hard to measure that because your success is based on something that's growing. So it could be status quo next year, but still we did well. So maybe if there's a way we can show the wins against what we see, I guess that would be, because it will be a moving target.
It will be.
Well, a good example is the stats from Dial, right? So.
And if we can even measure like what kind of coverage are they able to provide and are we able to help them increase that coverage, increase the number of volunteers and then that'd be really good. Yeah.
Ray, when we go through overcoming poverty, is there a way of identifying individuals who you are coming into contact or we are coming into contact with, whereby we can determine if they're really interested in getting an education to improve themselves? Do we have the mechanism to talk with not ONB, but Working New Brunswick to get access into community colleges for these folks if they have that education, or if they don't, do we have the ability to get them GEDs so that they can work themselves up out of poverty?
Yeah, and I guess I'm not the perfect person to explain this, but there definitely are programs that in our region that help individuals who are looking to kind of like make some of those progressions improvements. So so for example, yeah, I think there are some things through Working NB, but you've got Working Stronger Together with the Community Mental Health Association based in St. George and here in St. Stephen. They work with individuals who might have various learning disabilities or mental health challenges in terms of barriers to employment and kind of working with them to get them paired up with employers or work through what kind of educational steps they need to take to kind of progress there. You've got Charlotte County Adult Learning as well. They work with a lot of adults in terms of getting GEDs and upgrades. They do really good work as well, and that's across the county. And then you've got the workroom, I think, in some of the high schools across the county as well. So there are a few ways, and then I believe social development case managers will sometimes will also work with individuals and make referrals. And so there are a few avenues, and I would like to actually explore that further and kind of better understand what are those avenues and kind of nail them down and then work with Charlene on some of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Yeah.
Brad's got it too.
Oh, right.
Brad, yeah, you can't see it, but. Okay. Brad has.
Oh, Brad.
Thank you. I guess mine's more of a specific question related to refugees and in particular Ukrainian. There's been a lot of new residents that have moved to the area, and there was some through Working New Brunswick. There were some programs where there was funds for the first 6 months of their employment, and some employers have obviously taken advantage of that. But unfortunately, over the course of the 6 months, some of these new residents to Canada unfortunately haven't developed their language to a level in which they can effectively do the job. And I was wondering, do you know if there's any like second year programs or third year programs where we're supporting these people that are coming to our country? Because it seems like they come, we help them get started, but then once they're here, we kind of leave them to some degree out to dry. And I've got a few specific examples across Charlotte County right now where employers are having a hard time because they brought them on and they wanted to develop obviously the language barrier, but to the point right now where they're facing things like layoffs and things like that. I don't know if there's any opportunity there to lobby to get more resources, because it seems like we tell them to come here and then we don't give them all the tools they need to be set up to be successful.
Thanks for that, Brad. I don't know anything right off the top of my head. I know obviously the Multicultural Association supports newcomers, but those who kind of are streamlined through the programs that they work with. But maybe it's something that I can explore. I'll chat with Charlene and maybe we can reach out to Joan and find out a little bit more around that. What kind of other supports beyond that 6 month period, or even during that 6 month period, can be made available to newcomers.
Perfect. We can take that offline if you want. It's just something that's come up a couple times over the last few weeks to me. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Okay, back to you, Ray.
All right. I guess one more slide, last slide. Just a little update on regional transportation work. Right now, our focus is primarily on Charlotte Dollar. They are the community transportation provider in the region. So Alice and I were able to have a good chat with their ED and chair this past month, and we'll have another one next month. But just to highlight here, their impact, they're consistently supporting over 8,000 rides a year for around 200 members. That membership rotates, actually. It's good to know it's not just static. So some people progress out of membership. They are actually able to get their driver's license, and then so new members are always coming in. The demographic for them can be social development clients, students, aging population, those with temporary needs. They're seeing growing demographics right now. They've got one wheelchair accessible vehicle. It's the unique black vehicle you see driving around. That looks a little bit like a London cabbie, but it's not. So they've been running that the last year, and they said that's really opened up a whole new demographic of individuals that they can support, and it's increasing. There's a need there. But they're also having a growing demographic with immigrants and students, newcomers, and their biggest challenges primarily are, volunteer capacity. It's a unique individual who is willing to take that time, sit in a vehicle with somebody, drive them somewhere, often using their own vehicle for that. So your volunteer pool is smaller. There's also the logistics of scheduling. They've got a really good platform that they schedule with, but it's still a challenge, and then the vehicle usage component. So those are some of the biggest challenges identified. And so it was good for Hollis and I to kind of have that conversation, chat with them, and we'll look forward to further conversations of how we can support. We are waiting for some updates from the province, some movement around what they have in mind for community transportation, particularly from RDC. They're putting in an application for some funding that would support provincially some infrastructure for organizations like Dial-A-Ride. They're not the only one in the province. There's a number of them across the province that operate like this. So Hollis and I will be meeting up with them next month to explore that further, and we'll keep you posted.
RDC is looking to have a uniform platform across New Brunswick for all of the community transportation services like this, and so that's where they're heading with it. I don't know exactly where they're gonna go, but they've been talking to me and making some upgrades.
Yeah. And I should say too, I mean, another group that's really supportive of community transportation, but with a unique mode would be ECW with their Project Village car share. So that's a whole other thing, and I'd be excited to kind of chat with them a little bit further and find out what are they learning through their process. They've been at it for a year, they're new, and unique challenges with the EVs and how that works. But they've also been working closely with Dial-A-Ride whenever they can, and so just trying to again build that collaboration between the assets we do have in the region that are supporting the community, and keep that rolling.
Great. Any last minute questions, comments? We're ready? Now,
I just add to where Brad was going with the support of the immigrants. Is there an avenue also where their education they have from their where they're from and they come here, like help speeding that up? Like, how's that going? Is that something in your wheelhouse, or?
It's not something I'm familiar with.
Okay.
I know that I just read actually in Fredericton, I think there's a partnership between their economic development agency as well as the Multicultural Association and chambers to address some of those gaps for newcomers who've started studying, and then they're finding that they're not actually getting plugged in and keeping up to the Canadian workforce because of different language barriers or different cultural understandings of expectations and how to engage. So I think that's something to watch to see what they're doing there. That's the closest I can get to it, but again, I think Multicultural Association in our region is kind of our major resource there. Not the only one, I'm sure there are others, but yeah, there are. I'll note that as well.
thanks. Okay. Great, thank you very much. We'll move on to the CEO report.
I'm not gonna read it out word for word, I never do, but I do have some highlights and things that I'll point out. So in solid waste, our waste goals are running right around where they were in 2018, 2019. So it's a sustainable amount of waste for us. It's not as high as it has been in the last 2 or 3 years because of increased foreign waste, but it's not a washout. Recycling remains where it should be at about 13% diversion. Last report. This year we've collected 786 appliances for the white goods recycling program. So far, the program ends the end of this month. I call that a pretty successful year. There's a big pile of them out there. In planning, 450 building development permits have been issued or reviewed so far this year, leading to $38,531,240 worth of permits issued in the region. 89 subdivisions have been approved, and 186 new net dwellings in the region so far this year.
What's that number?
186. So with our other stuff, the Coastal Link Trail work is progressing. Now that St. John's strike's been resolved, they can continue on that piece. That they finish off that piece down there. They're working through Musquash. Next. The creative agency that you all met at our last meeting, they've started working according to the schedule they presented. There's a branding. We have a workshop coming up soon. Should be a day long. They're going to be here physically in the region and we're going to tour around and see if they get a good handle on what we're trying to accomplish. The process of the transition of CCRTA to us as the regional destination marketing organization is progressing, and I would expect you will see some significant changes by the end of this year. So CCRTA is being absorbed into the service commission. The Youth Opportunities Expo was held on October 10th. We had 220 students that came in. They were all bussed in from all over the region. And there was a whole lot of workshops that exposed them to a bunch of different employers. I think there was 20 different employers there. But it wasn't a job fair. It was about career opportunities. So there's a lot of workshops about different paths they could take. There's a lot of talk about trades and apprenticeship, which is needed. As I said, being university not being the only path for a lot of these kids, they had the opportunity to talk with a lot of different people. It was a really successful day. There is a pop-up job fair upcoming in November 1st. And the regional workforce development strategy works in progress. So just a reminder that the surveys are out now, the employer-employee surveys. So if you haven't seen or tell them, maybe tell your CAOs to fill them out and get them sent in to us. Doesn't take very long, but all, more data we have, the better off we are. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, which wasn't written in my CEO report, is that I included in the package a presentation from the New Brunswick Federation of Woodlot Owners. They presented to us the CEO group last week. It was a short presentation, but it was very interesting, very informative. So I thought I'd pass that information along because there's a surprising amount of land that they control. They're facing some significant challenges. So when you see all trucks rolling with round wood, unprocessed wood, and it's going to Maine, the reason is they get a much better price in Maine and Nova Scotia than they do in New Brunswick because there's only one bar. So we're not getting the value add of processing trees into lumber products. And I guess that was one of the messages they had, but she said that the price of what they can get for wood is about what it was 20 or 30 years ago. Right. But I know your lumber prices are not where they were 20 or 30 years ago. So that's the difference. That's the challenge you're facing. Anyway, I pass that presentation along. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody have any questions? Comments? I'm gonna ask one, because I don't know whether I can nod it off for a minute or what, but CCRTA, and that's
Charlotte
right.
County Tourism, Charlotte County Regional Tourism Association.
Okay, gotcha. I nodded right off. I missed that totally. I don't know why. Okay.
This year I live in acronyms.
Yes, that acronym went very fine. Okay. Financial update is the next one on the list.
Okay, what screen are we gonna look at first?
You want me to put one up or?
Sure, easier for them to see, I think. Start with the scale time, maybe?
Yeah, that's a new one.
Oh, yeah, I gave it to you before, I think the last time you got it was May.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it can be. I think the microphone will pick me up. I'm heading out, so if you want the hot seat.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks. No, I can move up to the hot seat.
Peer pressure, peer pressure. We get it.
If I gotta sit here, you might as well.
That's the one that, yeah, that's the one that got me filled.
You like the colors and?
No, it's the October, November, December line.
Yeah, well, we're expecting, we're gonna shut down for 3 months.
No,
is when I fill the table in.
Yeah,
It's,
I know.
instead of changing, going through every month and changing, I thought, I'm gonna leave them all at 0 and.
Yeah.
Because there are already areas to fill in another page.
Yeah.
So this is our ICI tonnage, which is industrial, commercial and institutional. So the blue one is the current year. So every month it's been higher than all those other months, but those were the COVID years, so businesses were more restricted, especially the restaurants. Now, for some strange reason, in the month of September, it dropped down. So. Can't explain that one.
Oh, like in the middle of August to September there, yeah.
Yeah, well, all through the May, June, July, April, May, June, July, August. It was all a lot higher, but that's in comparison to the COVID years.
Mm.
It rained so much they couldn't work outside. They couldn't work.
Well, that could be, yeah. Yeah.
Construction.
Okay.
Too much rain.
Next one down is MSW tonnage. Yeah. Which is municipal solid waste, so that's what comes from all municipalities. So primarily residential garbage. And so the little dots are all the way pretty well consistent. And actually during the COVID years, people were home cleaning out their houses and apartments.
Yeah.
So we saw an increase in MSW during those years. Next one down would be our US tonnage. So you'll notice we're good till March and then April it drops off after we had reduced US tonnage. There's quite a gap as you get in there for May, June, July, August, and September compared to the previous years. Our C&D tonnage. It's always up and down everywhere, no consistency. The reason why January and February are a lot higher than other years is because we took some marine waste. So, old boats. Cover tonnage. There's another one that's up and down, but tonnage has gone up in the last few months compared to what it was the rest of the year. And Western Valley, it's usually pretty consistent. So there was a little peak there in August and September because they hadn't brought us as much tonnage as they needed to for the full year. So I think they'll stay up there around that for the rest of the year. And I think that's it. Yeah. Okay.
Summary sheet. Or
Yeah, we'll go to the either one. All right. So this is the summary. The revenues are listed for each service. The expenditures are by each service. So year to date, we have a surplus of 377,000 for a number of reasons, and the breakdown of the surplus by service is below. So solid waste, it's almost 200,000 out of the whole surplus. And the reason there's a surplus at that point in time would be because Western Valley brings most of their waste to us in the first part of the year, so distorts the revenue stream. And for capital expenditures, we had budgeted 450,000 to start work on waste containment cell. But there's been quite a bit of rain this year. Got my lawnmower stuck in the backyard this afternoon. Anyway. Local planning has a big service or surplus because we have extra revenue coming in from Campobello and Grand Manan, which wasn't budgeted. And there's some cost related to that, but not enough to use it all up. And we also haven't transferred to the capital reserve fund in local planning yet. And the next big one that's way off is regional tourism promotion and regional economic development. And those ones are large because the revenue's been flowing in proportionally, but we haven't spent all the money.
the bills are coming. Bills are coming.
Yeah. And all the other ones, they're pretty marginal one way or the other for surplus or deficit. And I was trying to look forward in my projection to see how much solid waste was going to have at the end of the year. And I thought it was going to be right around a $50,000 deficit. But we're still a few months out. And then all the details are all down in all those other ones. I think I covered the highlights in them all. And then our other tab is the one for our statement of financial position. Yeah. So cash, we still got 1.6 million, trade receivables are 543,000. Some other little stuff there. The reserve funds, we have 3,667,000. Closure funds, 1,800,000. Prepaid expenses, so. We got about the same amount of total assets at 19 million is what we had at the end of December 2022. Various payables like building permits and trade payables, receiver general, 617,000. Landfill closure liability up to 1,848,000. And then we have all our various reserve funds and surpluses. So local planning, the capital reserve fund there sitting at about 10,000. We got 3,452,000 in solid waste capital reserve. Solid waste operating reserve is 186,000. The local planning operating reserve is 20,000, and cooperative regional planning operating reserve is about 5,000. So the only thing we can pay for with the capital reserves are capital asset purchases. And the board has to pass a motion to withdraw those. And the operating reserve monies can be used to pay for operating expenses. And a motion of the board is again required to take that money.
That operating reserve, are we expected to keep that? Like at the municipal level, we have to keep it to 5% of the budget. Do we keep it within that 5% here? Or
We have before, yeah.
how are we close to that 5% with those numbers?
Not now. Well,
Even then they're under.
They're under the
But I
5.
think they removed the cap. I haven't looked at the legislation.
Okay.
Pretty sure they removed that 5% cap.
I thought it had gone 5 to something a little higher, but it hadn't been removed totally.
Doesn't mean we need to move it up though.
No, no.
Yeah.
if our solid waste budget's around. It's 5 million-ish. Whatever that is,
Yeah.
then the cap at 5% would be 250.
Overhand. Well, we're on there.
Yeah.
The other question I had was, we have a surplus of, right now, 377. At some point, we need to refine that down so that we are able to move funding into the reserves, so that we get as close to zero as we can. At what point are we gonna be looking at doing that? Is that mid-December?
If we will, but like I say, I think at the end of December, we'll have about a $50,000 deficit. Because our tonnage will start to drop down some in the next few months.
Right. So if we have a deficit, then do we take it to zero by taking money out of the operating reserve?
You could.
Or do
That'll
we
be the
carry,
board's decision.
or do we carry it into 2 years down the road as a deficit on our budget line?
Yeah, you could. You have a choice of which thing you want to do.
Anybody else have any other questions, comments? Sorry.
No other good questions.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate it. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to bring up before we move to discussing upcoming meetings? Brad? Yeah.
Just a quick one. I'm sorry I had to cut out there for a quick thing during the public safety update. When we met with Minister Austin and asked when resources were going to be allocated out of the additional officers across New Brunswick, have we got any official word yet on what that means for our RC? Because his response was soon, and it's been one.
Oh, that's what I got in
Yeah.
the letter.
Yeah, maybe that's where I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was under the impression it was one as well, is why I was asking the question. I guess my response is I think we did a fairly good job being professional and congratulating the province for that allocation. And I know they're looking at the cop to pop ratio and things like that, but one officer for every community that's around this table basically is, not to underestimate one officer, but it basically means that we can't expect the province to be helping us improve policing in our region. And I actually think that if you have 80 new officers, and I know they're not all front line, but the fact that the challenges that we're facing with theft, drugs, the fact that we have one officer right now, I think as a group we need to respond. You know, the only answer we have is to give them more money, is what I'm hearing basically at this point. And then the question is where are all these officers going? Like, I don't know. I just, one officer for all of us, I'll be completely honest, out of 80 new officers, I know again, not all of them are front line. I actually think it's a joke when you look at the challenges we're facing as a region right now. And I'm glad that you kind of, one is what I heard as well. And I just think that it warrants a response out of all of us because it's not acceptable right now.
Weren't the most going east-north, I believe, that's where,
So that's
That's
one
what I see.
between all of us, not one each.
No, it's one.
no, yeah, that's the whole region, that isn't one
Yeah,
community.
I agree with Brad, I think maybe they should.
And there's 54 of the 80 that are on
Yeah.
the front line, or whatever the word is,
Yeah.
and the other ones would be doing that drug enforcement thing you're talking about, though, I think. Which you're starting to see an increase in.
It just feels like they heard, they weren't listening. You know what I mean? It just, the pressures that I'm getting every day, I'm getting a new phone call of someone breaking into a place right here, and it's going in the wrong direction right now. And one officer for all of us is going to make, let's be honest, not a difference, right? And here was funds, a significant amount of provincial tax dollars that I was hoping would make our region, whether we're safe or at least perceived safe, I was hoping it was going to make a difference. And I think giving us one completely missed the mark. And to be honest with you, as vocal as we all were and professional as we all were, I'm a little upset by it, to be honest with you.
So I'll tell you what my thoughts, when we heard 54 officers on the ground, I thought that sounded like a big number when we were told that, but it really isn't. When you talk about the province, and that's why we're hearing the one. You know, someone else is getting one, and then, 54 goes pretty quick across the province. But yeah, I thought the number sounded good, but it isn't, 54 isn't a big number.
So if we're 30,000 people, the province is 800,000, those are round numbers. And it's 54, if you divide it out, our allocation should be 2.025 to be exact.
So even though we heard one, doesn't mean that we're not getting another one once they get the people, 'cause I know we're having trouble getting set up. So maybe we're getting two, but even two, we still have this conversation, right?
Okay, I'm gonna go to Bonnie. She's got her hand up there.
I completely agree with both of you. I think that, we do need to follow up, and maybe the next time we're not quite as polite if we have a chance to sit down, because that part of it didn't work. But aren't we due on this topic? Aren't we due for our quarterly meeting with the RCMP? Is it worth sitting down with them to see what they're hearing internally, to see if maybe there's something else coming that we haven't seen yet? Or when will we normally be having that?
I can follow up, if you, yeah, please. I've kind of lost track of that one, as far as timings go.
Wouldn't it end of September been their second or third?
Didn't feel like it's that long, no, so
Well, it's
September's not
April,
that-
May, June, July, August, September.
There you go.
Could be any time now, but
Just before Christmas.
yeah, should be coming in and talk to us.
Yeah. It would be their second quarter in their year. Then it runs through March 31st. So that's when their fourth quarter is between December or January and end of March.
So would you be looking for a dedicated special meeting for this, or do you do this at a committee of the whole, or do you want to?
Well, I think that our community of the whole meeting, committee of the whole meeting would suffice for that. That way it's not televised, and we can actually speak our minds a little more directly.
So one thing I heard too is more funding, not that we all want to spend more money on policing, but can someone guide us on how we could entertain that? Like, or maybe we will sit down and say this, increase our by a certain percentage. But is there an avenue for them to take that funding and provide more people? And how would we do that? Without, because they have their own formula, but how do we add to it?
Well, if you take example like St. Andrews where they have their own contract. I think it might, I think.
Yeah, I don't know, I've not delved into that, so I really can't. Because it's a provincial contract, I don't know how the municipalities get engaged in that and say, okay, we want to pay for an extra body or two. And so I don't even know whether that contract has the ability to entertain that. So we would have to research that some.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, like, I know there's Kodiak RCP, for instance, Moncton is a separate. It's a separate contract that Moncton has with RCP to provide that kind of police service, similar to what St. Andrews has, but on a much larger scale, obviously, but it isn't, it is possible that you could have a Southwest policing contract, I think.
I would like to know that, because I get asked questions that kind of lay around that area that I don't really have the direct answer. All I know is I have offered to spend more money when I was upset a few months back, but there's no avenue to do it.
But is there a willingness to?
Well, that would be up to each, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah.
Is that a thing we're gonna be jointly do together, or do we all have to?
Well,
Do it separately?
I think you're gonna be, because of the increase, service in St. Stephen, for example, and not in anywhere else, isn't it? I don't know how well that would work, but if you increase the service for the whole region, then you're gonna have that many more members for the whole region that are. I'm just guessing here, I'm no expert here though.
I think if you had a couple of extra folks, you could use them to focus. I think it's a good idea. I just don't, I think we'd have to research it to see what it would cost us. But certainly, even if you had 3 or 4 extra. Over and above the quota that we're allowed right now, you could use those, as Brad is saying, in St. Andrews. They seem to be having a raft of theft or a rash of theft taking place there at this particular time. Well, then you focus those 4 that you have available, because now you have a say over how they're going to be used, because you're paying for them specifically. You could then say, okay, St. Andrews has the highest priority right now, go work there for the next 2 or 3 weeks and try and sort out that issue there. Just a thought as we go through. Bonnie's got a statement there. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to the meeting with Chris Austin, and a lot of the conversation that we had was focused on, I don't know if it's more, but on the justice system and the length of time it takes to get through the courts, the access to court services, which isn't really in his purview. So I'm wondering if it's worthwhile to ask for a meeting with the Minister of Justice, I'm guessing, to talk about how we do access court services and if there is a way to speed that along, because I know that's a huge frustration. Is it looks like nothing is happening because people are back out on the streets, even though it's taking a year to get through the court process. You don't know what the charges are, what's happening with it. And sometimes it's that gap that causes the real frustration.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the other thing too is it's all messed up, because Brad might have a separate contract with RCMP and he has an RCMP station in St. Andrews, but that doesn't mean those officers are in St. Andrews. Well, yeah, but they're supposed to be, but you got a brand new ambulance station there too, and the ambulances, they use dynamic deployment the same as ambulance New Brunswick does.
My contract is just accounting purposes. I'm on the same exact service all of you are. On any given night, my officers are in Eastern Charlotte or St. Stephen, and they'll assign officers, but they're just accounting purposes officers. Like an officer in St. Stephen or an officer in Eastern Charlotte is almost just as good as putting an officer in St. Andrews to me. And I have a municipal police contract. If I add an extra officer, there's no guarantee that's going to improve policing in my community at all. They're going to be next door or somewhere else. So that's a little bit of the challenge. But I know that we've got 1 officer. If the numbers behind it indicate 2, and even if our cop to pop ratio is good, it means that there's some communities in New Brunswick that got more of these resources, and these resources are 100% provincial paid, meaning that we are paying more per officer than those communities are now because they got these extra officers at no extra cost. So I think it's worth kind of expressing our frustration to and looking for solutions.
No, and I guess you just hit it right exactly what I was trying to say, I guess, is that just because we have a station in St. Stephen or wherever it is, that doesn't mean nothing. Like one cop in St. Stephen, I don't care where the cop goes in RSC 10, it's gonna benefit us all because that one cop may be in Musquash.
But one's kind of a slap in the face.
No, 100%. When I read it, when I got it that night here, I disagree with it 100%. I just don't know. I'm hoping. And again, just because we're using or looking at a multifaceted approach of mental health, especially, I'm hoping that, I guess, in whatever form we take of saying we disagree with this, which I do, I'm hoping that more resources will be put on this, like whether it's mobile mental health or whatever. I would hate to see us lose out on everything across the board and another region get all of it and we get nothing, then that would be a double slap in the face to me and to my municipality, because right now we feel we're getting nothing, like we're not even getting patrols, we're getting, so if you add a police officer, with all due respect to them, I know the job they're doing very well and what they're doing, you know, if you're giving those 3 officers and putting them on the bomb squad or whatever specialty they're doing, that's great, but none of us may never use that resource. And we're paying into that and getting somebody in Bucktouche is getting 8 officers and we're getting 1. Like it just don't make sense.
Sorry to interrupt, but we need to move the needle in our region right now. And this is one of the major initiatives on the action plan. And it's not going to move the needle for any of us. So we need to go back and maybe to do Mayor Morse's point, maybe it's, we need to figure out the courthouse, but like something has got to change and 1 officer is not the solution for this region. It's just, we're too big of an area.
I know that at the public safety meeting, the one message that, you know, we hear all the time about vehicle thefts around the region. Not a single car has been hotwired. People just need to stop leaving their keys in the car. Seriously,
The keys are either in it or nearby.
Or over the, don't put them over the visor. They all know where to look there too. Like, and so maybe a little bit of this is about communication, but maybe there's a little bit about some other stuff as well. I know that we had a theft here on Sunday. His bicycle was out back, and I caught it on the cameras. Actually, our facility manager texted me. He said, "Who had the bike? Who lost?" Because they just lost it. And so I looked, and sure enough, it was Alex's. And but he called the police. They were here, I don't know, within 10 minutes, and he talked to them, and they knew exactly who it was. You know, they knew exactly what to do. So after the fact, like, I don't know. When it comes to crime prevention, that's a different story than policing, right?
Oh, I have no doubt more police isn't the answer to fix this, but I still think we're very light on police. But we definitely gotta, like I was talking with Raymond about measuring progress. I'd like to do the same here. You know, they put this on the table. How are they making out, you know, with the justice system?
Yeah.
I mean, that was only a month ago, but I mean, we gotta see how they're moving along with that, because we're not seeing it. Because more police is just gonna be more people arrested and let go if the justice system is not working. So all we're gonna do is increase our crime rate and our numbers are gonna go up, but the justice
Court
is taking care of
system,
it, right?
Yeah, he said he was going to increase the public safety on the highway
Yeah.
too, so which takes the RCMP off the highway. But it frazzles a bit because we have highways right next to it.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of options available to us. Number one is that we write a letter back to Chris Austin stating that RSC 10 is not happy, I guess, in those terms, with the allocation of officers being only 1, when by POP it should be 2 minimum. The second one is to bring these concerns to our regional reps at the RCMP when they come to talk to us within the next month or so. And then the third item was to get a hold of the justice minister. To see if we could have a meeting with him from an RSC kind of perspective.
It's not Chris Austin.
No, it's Ted Fleming.
Oh, Fleming.
Sorry, did you guys all get invited to a meeting with Chris Austin? And then they, like it was, they're having it in 3 different locations, and then they pulled it out because they
It
made a
did,
mistake.
because it wasn't, we already had
That
one,
was-
right? Is that how I understood it?
Okay.
And they didn't, those 3 regions didn't have one yet, that
So
we
it's
already
similar to what
had.
we already
Yeah.
had. I was gonna say, if they
So
do,
it's-
if they're planning that meeting, we could share our concerns at that meeting, but if it's coming right out with that, apparently they sent us this yesterday and then they pulled back.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if it's coming down the road for there or something.
So did I encapsulate the 3 things that we could possibly do? Okay. How do we handle that now? So we got the 3 things. Do I just pass it over to you, Hollis, and see what you can make happen there? Yep. Okay. So we'll leave that with Hollis. We'll discuss it again at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to bring up? Okay, upcoming meetings, we have our next scheduled regular board meeting, November 23rd. What will be the date for the committee of the whole? Will be November the 9th.
You can just have an email out all those dates there's sometime.
Just to give you an update, I guess, with regard to December. Normally in December, we dispense with our last meeting, which would be our regular board meeting, which would this year end up on the 28th of December. I'm thinking most people will want to dispense with that again this year. We would recommend probably just having our committee of the whole meeting that mid-December timeframe. And so if you guys are okay with that, we'll take a motion to do away with the end of December meeting, but that won't happen until our next regular meeting. But I just wanted to give you all a heads up on that.
Can we? Because you can't vote at our committee of the whole, but if you needed something voted, could we combine the 2 meetings in the middle?
What we can do is, like, if we had to have a short. Board meeting, a condensed board meeting for a couple of motions, like say we were moving something to a reserve.
Yeah.
We can do that. We just
Yeah.
open the meeting, do
Yeah.
that, close the meeting. And then continue on, and we'll probably do this. Not here. Dinner soon. Yeah, we've done in the past.
Oh, this is gonna keep going.
Okay,
We have.
Any,
We might as well make
any
it go.
Q&A from the public?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Is there anyone there? Can you tell me?
I'll move for a change.
Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.
I know you're.
Thank everyone.
I was ready to go for it.
Right.
Good night now.
Ken, I need your signature.
We got a one.